mean, my take is kind of, if you have a tractor, or maybe a big enough one, and you could only get one other machine, I would say a tractor and a mini excavator would be the way I would go. Yeah. I mean, they're that useful, the minis.
Hey, it's Brock here with Rock Hill Farms, and this is Joe with Kapper Outdoors, and I'm pretty excited today. He's got 150 acres here, bunch of equipment, the kind of equipment I'm in the market for, and he's kind of doing some of the stuff I want to be doing. So he's going to give us a property tour, let me play a little bit. Yeah. Should be a lot of fun.
Yep, it will be. So let's check out the property and then you can play on the machines.
Good deal.
So we started off with a full property tour on the side-by-side, and it's an awesome property. And then we finished up by operating Joe's tractor, skid steer, and mini excavator, which was awesome for me as someone who's in the market to buy one. But I wanted to start off with this drone footage because I don't think I really showed the pond in any other shots, and it's a great looking pond. The view from the back door of their house is phenomenal. The section of pond on the right was already there when they bought the property, and then the section on the left Joe added and really did a nice job with it. So if you enjoyed our pond series, you should see some of the ones he's done on his channel. But let's get back on the side-by-side and talk about equipment a little bit. The other thing I wanted to say before we jump back into that is that this is the first stop of our road trip that's taking us to the Utility Expo in Louisville, Kentucky, where we're going to meet up with a bunch of other cool channels. So come back in the next couple of days, and we've got a lot of great content coming.
We probably have miles of trails. I mean, literally, miles and miles of trails.
I'd like to do a video series kind of cutting something like this into the little bit of our property that's not really usable. But right now we just kind of have flat ground and we have one little dried out kind of pond area.
Like this, I built this new road. This whole thing was washed out, so I built channels on both sides, to get that runoff out of there. So this was the very first plot that I made on this property. This was before I really had much equipment. I was hiring out back then, which is another reason I bought machines. I used to have to hire all this out. Dozer work, excavator work, grading, anything. I'd had to hire it out at, 150, 200 bucks an hour. It adds up fast. And if you look at, the mini excavator probably has paid for itself. So we're thinking about building a new cabin like a VRBO, but we're debating on, I'll clear a bunch of this out, maybe dig a nice little pond here and build a rental cabin here. I mean, it's so peaceful out here. I mean, you see how remote we are. I call this Fangorn Forest. I don't know, are you a Lord of the Rings fan?
Yeah.
So when we got here, the only thing I had was my Coyote. It was the 60 horse NX, and I built this entire road by chainsaw, by back labor, and by that Coyote tractor. We're going to go down for another section here. And after that, I'm like, oh gosh, I got to figure out a way to buy a bigger machine of some kind,
That's my favorite kind of content, is like watching someone cut trails, and I've been watching tons of that lately and thinking, man, I can do some of this with the tractor, but I need a skid steer to take it up a notch as far as efficiency and how big of a material you can clear.
I'll tell you what, the excavator is way more useful than a lot of people realize, because I use it for things that I never would have thought that I could use it for. And clearing roads is one. If I had my choice, I'd rather have an excavator than a skid steer.
See, I've been kind of torn on that. One thing that leads me towards skid steer is I move 3,500 pound pallets of plywood twice a week, and right now I have to split that by hand onto my forks and move them 12 sheets at a time.
Okay.
And it'd be nice, but when you're talking about a $50,000 to $100,000 piece of machinery that I want to do a lot of things with, it's not the overriding factor. But man, you could specialize as a business in something like French drains or septics or something, and then do other things too with this mini X. between those two machines as far as what, because you can get a lot of attachments for either one.
Yeah, I mean, my take is kind of, if you have a tractor or maybe a big enough one and you could only get one other machine, I would say a tractor and a mini excavator would be the way I would go.
Yeah.
I mean, they're that useful, the minis.
So I know, obviously, you can use that bucket to like tear down buildings or any type of digging, and you can do some grading with the blade on the front. But is there other stuff I'm not thinking of?
Well,
maybe?
if you think of, I mean, like you do stuff with your pallet forks, moving stuff around. I mean, pretty much just about any of that you could do with a mini. You know, you could grab it or use chains. And I find myself moving stuff around in our barn where there ain't enough room. The mini, you got that long neck, and it's easy to shuffle equipment around. You know, it's just in the woods, picking up logs and clearing. Like, if it's on one of my hit lists, but like if you wanted to clear an area of the woods and make it look more picturesque and open, man, you go in there with that mini and you just go to town. Whereas a skid steer with a grapple is a real good piece. It's a good combo for stuff like that.
But say like out here where you've got all these big rocks and stuff, if you want to flatten that out, your blade on the mini is going to push harder than that skid steer.
Yeah, a mini, it's another thing people don't realize, is it's slower. Now, don't get me wrong, if you got like a long driveway and you can backtrack with the skid steer, but the mini will grade just as good. As a matter of fact, like you said, even better. The mini will often peel up that top layer of sod if you got it. Like, we got a 42 horse. We got a waterfall down there, by the way, that's probably not running right now.
That's awesome. Can you get any of your other equipment back to this part of the property? Is there a wider trail somewhere? Or is this kind of hard to access?
No, I can get in there. This is just a real narrow trail. The trail we went in on goes through the center. This is like a 20-acre block here, Fangorn Forest.
Oh,
I can get anything in here. I can get any kind of equipment in here. Yeah, so this was the other road. The previous landowner let this, I could tell it was an old skidder road. And I see this a lot on the properties that we flip. And people let them go. You know, whether they don't have the equipment or they can't hire someone. So this one was overgrown with saplings and trees about that big. I did this all by hand, so chainsaw too, before I got any kind of equipment. It's another one of my food plots down here.
I've watched you do a couple of these and said you really know what you're doing on those food plots.
Well, it's it's learning experience, and that's another thing. I mean, that's another good income stream. If you can develop land good enough, you can get double or triple the going rate for a deer lease that just is raw land. So in other words, like that property, I put 4 food plots in our new 40-acre piece, and I was able to get double or more of the going rate, because for you to hire out those food plots, you're looking at $2,000 or $2,500, and they're all I did all the work and put them in. So that's one way where you can draw lease income that's going to be higher than just leasing the raw land, if you will.
Yeah, I saw one of those too, where you had the 2 guys out there that were leasing the hunting property, I think, from you.
Yep.
Yeah, that's one of the guys I'm kind of working with on some stuff. He suggested if you learn how to do it right, you can be hired to put in food plots for people.
That's a big business. I mean, Curtis has his own food plot business. I help him out. We're not like actively seeking clients, but we get 6 or 8 or 10 a year for the machines, whether it's clearing new food plots or actually planting.
And so you guys, you said that you had one side of this dug. There was one side here.
Yeah, the far side is the old farm pond, and we added this. It's about 3 acres total, about 1.5 acres each.
So the videos I was watching on your channel about you digging ponds, that was for other people then.
Yeah, yep. I've had to repair the old pond dam like 3 or 4 times. because you know it's like 50 years old, which is the reason we kept this peninsula in there. In case that dam fails, it won't drain the whole thing. It'll, you know, they're connected, but only by like 2 feet of the top water.
What would you guess the depth on each section to be?
That old one's at least 12 feet or so in the deep spot, and the new one's pushing 17 feet.
Has that pier been there a long time?
I put that in a couple, 2-3 years ago.
That's pretty cool.
I mean, we got like that way. Actually, we got some trails, but we go over another 100 or 200 yards that way. Most of our woods is sanctuary, though, for deer hunting. I don't usually go in there except for the winter time.
When I sat down to edit this video, I was planning to put everything we did at Kapper's property into one video. But he's got so much equipment, and I wanted to test drive all his major pieces of equipment. And to really show all that, I'd have a video that was 30 to 45 minutes long, and decided just to break it in half. So this one showed you the property, and the next video is going to show you the equipment. The coolest thing about being on YouTube is the people you meet along the way, and Kapper was one of the coolest people I've met since I started this. He was a really gracious host, and I appreciate his hospitality. So check back tomorrow for the rest of our meetup, and in the meantime, check out Kapper Outdoors here on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.